What is debt recycling? And interesting, Ben. There's a lot of buzz around this. If you go into YouTube or Google it, there's a lot of people who are loving using this word or this combination of words as I guess, a little bit of spin. But it depends on what your angle is on what debt recycling is. But I think the bottom line for anyone who's listening to this is what it's essentially saying is something that we've been talking about on this podcast for the last 10 years, and we've been implementing in our personal lives and our professional lives for the last 20 plus years. And it's doing this, looking for ways to turn tolerable debt into productive debt. So if we quickly revisit the three types of debt, or if we go from the evolution of debt, Ben, which is all debt is bad. Okay, let's go from primary school to secondary school on that. It went from now there's good debt and there's bad debt. And we're encouraging our audience to go, well, actually, if you're going to go to tertiary level around debt, there's three types of debt. There's horrible debt, tolerable debt, and productive debt. Horrible, obviously, for stuff that goes down in value. Tolerable for the principal place of residence. It's tolerable because it's an essential need. And if you do it well, it'll go up in value, but you're the only one who's slaving away paying it off. And then there's productive debt, which is for income-producing assets that are going to grow your wealth. So essentially what debt recycling is turning the second one, tolerable debt, and using any paid down equity that's created in those assets to re-leverage out into productive debt so you can buy income-producing assets that ultimately, if you listen to the debt recycling evangelist, Ben, using any positive cash flow that comes from that investing to actually put back into your mortgage, which can then pay it down more, which means you can draw it back out and start again. So that's essentially the 30,000 view. But where do you want to dive in here?
Remember, any type of investment that you're making still carries risk. So if you are going to sort of debt recycle, which effectively means that, let's use a simple example. I've got a $500,000 mortgage on a property that's worth, say, $650,000. And I've been able to save strongly over the last 12 months, and I've built up, say, $80,000 in my offset account. Now, I want to keep $30,000 there for liquidity and sort of emergencies and a buffer, but I've got $50,000 that I can pay off that mortgage. So all of a sudden, I pay that $50,000 off, and so I've reduced the non-deductible debt down to $450,000. Now, what do I do with accessibility to that? Now, in some cases, you might do a split loan where you get that $50,000 out, and you might look at and consider different investment options. And the moment you turn it into an investment, it's deductible because you're basically changing the purpose. What some people do is and this makes it very difficult for their accountants, is they put the $50,000 into the loan and then they redraw it out. And so the clarity around what is deductible and what is non-deductible is now mixed. It's murky. And so the tax office sort of looks at that, and accountants sort of do their best in terms of showing the nexus of the money going in and then the lump sum of that money going out, and then they're justifying the purpose of that. But then they've got to calculate the interest. So it is better to go and speak to an investment savvy broker if this is something you are considering doing. And then from there, maybe doing a separate split. So getting a variation to the current loan that you've currently got that then allows you to really isolate that out. And then you can have that for investment activities. And obviously any return you get off that, you've then got to look at parking those, dividends or any type of income you're receiving from that into the offset. Or if you sell the asset in 2 or 3 years' time or whatever, you're parking the lump sum of those proceeds back into the offset. But that is effectively debt recycling. And I think from our point of view, it's a good strategy when you are gainfully employed, when you've done a good budget around your current situation and your future needs, and you're really well planned in terms of that. So I would discourage this type of activity heavily for spontaneity purchases or any of that, just crazy stuff, right? Oh, everyone's jumping on this share, it's going to go skyrocket. Okay, I quickly need to. Don't do it. Just basically be really methodical about how you're setting up and planning for this. Seek advice is always that part of that story. And then eventually you will start to understand what Bryce was talking about around productive debt. And then ultimately you will discover investment properties, and you'll say, ooh, all of a sudden now for the $100,000 in equity that I've got, I can potentially control a $400,000 or $500,000 property, and you're off to the races in terms of getting that system set up and having a couple of those as part of your story. And that's how you adjust for your equity in your property and then release that out for investment purposes.
So let's quickly break it down, how it works. Utilize home equity, re-borrow against it for investments that will then generate income and tax benefits that you can then use to accelerate your mortgage repayment, and then rinse and repeat until you've paid off your mortgage. That's the plan. So nothing groundbreaking there, but still a nice buzzword for people to think about. But you raised a really good point, Ben, because I'll get to it in a sec, but there's some pros of debt recycling. Obviously, mortgage acceleration, tax efficiency, and wealth creation. They're your three headlines. But the cons are, you said it, market volatility. It's not a lay down misère or guaranteed. You've got to make sure that you know what you're doing when you're putting into the investment. You're clearly going to then increase your debt exposure. And the third thing is complexity. And you said it in a different way, but I just had my pollution radar fully going up here, because if you don't have even just a medium level of sophistication on how this money flows in and out and being able to separate it between personal and investment, good luck trying to actually work out what is actually deductible versus what is non-deductible, and more importantly, being able to withstand an audit when someone else is looking you down and the adrenaline's up and there's a couple of sweat beads on your forehead, Ben, and you've got to say, well, this is actually how I justified all that tax deductibility. All the best. So, but I think it's very, very clear. One, if you've been listening to this show for 10 years or you've been a client of ours for the last 20 years, you're doing it anyway. And two, it's just a nice way to package up a way to say, look, you should be investing for your future. You should trap some surplus, and wherever possible, find the most tax optimal way for you to be buying the best properties or the best investments that are going to actually get you North Star.